During the 2021 Oscar season, the frontrunner was Nomadland.
I saw that the film had received an R rating, so I was expecting it to get a 15 here in the UK, but when I looked it up on the BBFC's site, I saw it had a 12 rating. I saw the reason for the R rating, nudity. And the nudity is nothing more than a 3 to 5 second scene of Frances McDormand bathing. There is nothing sexualized about this scene. It's just natural nudity of someone bathing. The BBFC don't even list it as a reason for the 12 rating. Their main concern was suicide references. The following year, the same thing happened again with The Power of the Dog. R rating for sexuality and full nudity, but rated 12 by the BBFC for a whole bunch of things, and nudity is not one of them. The nudity in question is also a few bathing scenes, where we see guys washing themselves, so the same as Nomadland, just with guys instead, and it's not sexualized in any way, just natural nudity.
The R ratings are very baffling to me, because the MPAA have given PG-13 ratings to films with nudity before.
Titanic is probably the most famous example of this. The famous "draw me like one of your French girls, Jack" scene, in which Rose strips down to get painted by Jack. The older Rose even says that was the most erotic scene of her life. Arguably, the nudity in this context is eroticized. And hey, let's not even talk about how the film shows hundreds of people dying. But yeah, sure, Frances McDormand bathing is far worse than any of this. Think of the children!
Frances McDormand went full frontal compared to Kate Winslet, who only showed her breasts.
Orlando, from 1992. Halfway through the film, Tilda Swinton stares at herself naked in a mirror. Just like McDormand's bathing scene, it is very brief. It's a really important scene to the story though, since it is this moment where Orlando realizes she is a girl after being a boy for the first half of the film. And what better way to visually show this than the naked female body? So why didn't this film get an R rating then?
No clue. Maybe they did take the story context into account, but it just seems so inconsistent when Nomadland gets an R rating for a scene that isn't as detailed as this one.
Nell, from 1994. While you don't explicitly see Nell's front, only in silhouette, the film features a few scenes where Nell swims and bathes in the lake near her cabin, far more frequent than in Nomadland, with her breasts being clearly visible, yet the film got a PG-13 rating, in which nudity is only listed as the reason. The context of the nudity in both films is exactly the same, yet Nell gets PG-13.
What about The Power of the Dog? Surely showing a penis would justify the R rating, even if it's someone bathing.
The Cider House Rules, from 1999. This film has a brief scene that shows a guy coming out of a shower and we see his penis. Despite all the hard-hitting content in this film, the penis is the least of the troubles.
Are you sleeping with your own daughter?
It got a PG-13 rating. So why is this an R-rated penis? But this is a PG-13 rated penis.
Probably something to do with Harvey Weinstein, since he was pushing the Cider House Rules for Oscars. But content-wise, I would say that the Cider House Rules is far worse than The Power of the Dog. But anyway, back to boobs now. Amadeus, from 1984, features a scene in which Mozart's wife starts undressing in front of Salieri, since she believes they are going to have sex. Salieri tells her to get out and she's embarrassed. This one scene is what got Amadeus an R rating. Maybe because the context of the nudity is in a seductive manner, sort of like that scene in Titanic. Despite this scene, the BBFC still gave Amadeus a PG rating. I do feel like it deserves the PG rating, since there are no lingering shots on nudity, and it's a short, yet quite important scene to the story.
Another example of PG boobs, and this time from both the MPAA and BBFC, is in Kramer Vs Kramer. In a slight comedic scene where Henry questions a woman who just came out of his dad's bedroom, the context with this nudity is clearly after sex. Even though the nudity is not focused upon or sexualized, the reason for it is due to sex. So, which of these two is arguably more sexualized? To me, they seem the same, and the BBFC agree with me. On the other end of the scale is The Bounty, released the same year as Amadeus, a film that got a PG rating from the MPAA, despite the long, frequent scenes of topless women, though the nudity is in a natural context, since it's part of the tribe. However, there are scenes of the sailors gawking at them, but the camera never focuses on the nudity. But I would argue that doing this does sexualize the nudity in the film. From what I have seen, it's probably the most boobs you'll ever see in a PG-rated film. The BBFC gave the film a 15. Included on the reasons why is the violence and the nudity.
I'm sure if the MPAA re-rated this film today, it would easily get an R rating.
This seems to be a pattern. Films released in the late 60s to early 2000s that feature nudity in a natural context, or very briefly, get a PG or PG-13 rating. But that doesn't seem to be true today. In 2015, Penelope Cruz starred in the Spanish film called Mama. It's about a woman who is diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. She has checkups and goes through treatment, so as you would imagine, there are numerous scenes where you see her breasts. But the context of this nudity is a medical one. Despite this, the film got an R rating for nudity. The BBFC gave it a 12 rating because they understood the context. In 2018, you have The Kindergarten Teacher, a film that has a few scenes of natural nudity in which we see Lisa get undressed and one in which she showers. The nudity is not the focus, it's just there. And of course, it gets an R rating. 12 from the BBFC though. So why have the MPAA stopped taking context into account? Nowadays, it seems that just showing nudity, despite the context, will get an R rating, when, as we've seen, that didn't used to be the case. The MPAA is just not consistent with rating nudity.
So, I guess we've all learned a valuable lesson today, kids. You can show hundreds of people dying and drowning, but show someone bathing and it's the worst thing ever. Nomadland's R rating is ridiculous.